Okay, there we go. And thank you, Jennifer. We always love having you. We love having you back, and we can't wait to have you back next year to hear how this is all going. You had to drive 5 minutes. I know you talked about some sleepless nights and a lot of hard work that's been put into this, but maybe if we could just back it up a little bit and go back in time. What sparked the new relationship between both provinces, and why now, the timing?
Thank you, and I'm sure Michael and I will tag team here today. Michael mentioned our premiers, our previous Premier Fury and certainly Premier Legault. And they have been, you could see clearly, and if you were watching, you could see clearly they were building a relationship to see could they take the position of courage that said we need to try to do something together. We both have needs, and those intersect. There's a Venn diagram of needs intersecting. So they worked certainly on building the relationship to understand where each was coming from, and then they really tasked us with that. And I certainly don't want to speak too much for Hydro-Québec, significant energy needs. And then we had certainly the opportunity that was waiting to be corrected and turned into something very different. So again, I don't want to speak too much for Hydro-Québec, but I think that is a big part of the energy needs, would be a big part of why we were able to find this moment together.
Okay, I'll just make a couple of comments because I think Jennifer's touched on some important points. First thing I'll say is, certainly from our point of view, we think this agreement's overdue. And it's overdue first because there were certainly elements of the original agreement that, no matter how you slice it, from the perspective of 2025, there were some pretty significant issues of fairness there. And they needed to be addressed. Second, also, just in terms of the evolution of the world, this issue around energy, electricity, clean electricity, is an increasingly important determinant of economic success and competitive advantage, and therefore economic prosperity in the future. So I think what we found here, and that really unlocked the door to something that has been very difficult to accomplish in the past, is a couple of things. First, this, I think, pretty rare coincidence of vision, of view between the two political leaders at the time around, one, the importance of establishing a completely different and better relationship between Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador. Two, this point about the importance of electricity as a driver of economic success in the future. And then three, and really important, a recognition on the part of the two political leaders that it's really the long term, and that setting foundations for the long term really counts. Now, I don't know how you folks think about politics and politicians, but and I know we've got a former one on the panel with us today, so I need to be careful here, but getting a political leader focused on those three things would be no small feat. Getting two of them focused on it at the same time, that is a rare event. And that rare event, I think, helps explain why the door was open for us to go ahead with this. And then, as Jennifer has said, Newfoundland had certain needs, we had certain needs. The overlap of those things, the willingness of the part of Newfoundland to engage in new production enabled us to meet Newfoundland's needs for a fairer deal, to be blunt, a fairer deal with respect to energy pricing going on. And it's the combination of all of these things, so it's a bit like a Rubik's Cube came together that opened the door for this to happen. I think it's a rare event, but it's a valuable one.
It's a great comparison. And as a former politician watching, one of the things I noticed was this all got done so quietly until December when it was announced. So you were all working very hard behind the scenes. The two premiers were meeting, and then surprise, in December, there was an MOU struck.
Charlene, that's because you weren't in some of the boardrooms. There it wasn't quite as quiet.
Usually in politics, it's really hard to keep things quiet. There are rumors. So, there are people, though, in both provinces that remain skeptical about the MOU and if we can ever really reach an agreement that equally benefits both provinces. What would you say to the skeptics?
I'll certainly speak to the skeptics in this province, and Michael could choose to speak to the ones in his province. First and foremost, show me a deal where there hasn't ever been skeptics and 100% endorsement. I just think that that is probably an unreachable bar. You were always going to have some folks who, first, probably, and some of the symptoms don't fully understand the specific details, and it's very complicated. It has so many legs and arms to really understand all of it. I think you'd have to be immersed in it for years, as we were. So we can't set the bar of success as no skeptics, because it doesn't exist. So there's always going to be skeptics. But from the people in this province, we did work on this for years leading up to the actual conversations with Hydro-Québec in the room, and they were working on that for more than a year with Hydro-Québec as well. So, the effort took a very long time. And through that process, we both got things that we needed that were most important to us. And what Newfoundland and Labrador did in both our preparation and during the process, it's no secret now because it's now public, is that we employed not only our incredible team internally, a few of which are here today, but we also went out and sought the best advice that we could possibly get. People who do this for a living, not people who read a few stories on the internet and think they got the whole thing figured out. We employed people and paid for people to come and help advise us on what is the absolute best deal possible. But the deal has to work for both. So that is what I would say, is that 100% endorsement, I don't think exists. We have to understand and not be worried when there's, somebody who suggests that there's a skeptic. We had the best deal possible. And the other component too, which, we have also made ourselves very available to the public en masse, and I'm going to say a lot of even one-on-one updates that we've had with a lot of folks that we've just sort of explained the deal. So we are ready, willing, and able to explain all components of this in every format. We spent the days in the House explaining all of the details. So, we feel very good that we've got a good deal, that it stands up to the scrutiny, it'll stand up to history. It has a lot of mechanisms in place to adjust over time. As Michael said, FAIR is included in the MOU. So that is what I would say to certainly our jurisdiction.
Well, I guess the only thing I would add to that, I used the word earlier this afternoon, I used the word partner and partnership. Well, in our minds, and certainly in my mind, the only basis for a long-term partnership, if you're really serious about using that word, partnerships only endure for the long term if they're based on a balanced set of results. And when we look at this agreement, there's some things in there that we would prefer were not there, and I'm sure there's some things in there that Jennifer would prefer that are not there, but that's what a negotiation is about. But ultimately, when we look at this deal, we see one that is balanced. And I know our two premiers put an emphasis on that when it was announced in December, and they talked about even quantitatively how the two things are balanced. I won't go into that now, but there's so many elements of balance in this deal around the additional power that Newfoundland and Labrador gets, the additional power that we get, our willingness to use our capabilities to build some of these more complicated installations at Gull and in the additional power stations, the expansion of the power station at Churchill, et cetera, as Jennifer's mentioned. Our willingness to do that contributes to this sense of balance, the increase, the removal of the unfairness of the previous deal. All these things come together to in our minds, scope out something that we think is very fairly and very finely balanced, because I can assure you, in getting through those negotiations, this was not easy. No one should think that because it was quiet, it was like just slipping your foot inside a slipper that's already too big for you and it just goes in. This took multiple shoehorns to get the foot in the shoe. So this was not an easily done thing, and it is a finely balanced thing. But because it is, as Jennifer says, skepticism is skepticism. And, it's understandable, and it's reasonable that there are skeptics about it, given all of the history of the original deal and the frustration that was built around it. And we're very, very sensitive to the extent of that frustration. But now we've got something better. It's just a better thing, it's better balanced, and it's a better basis for a partnership going forward.
Excellent. I've heard you both refer to this as a nation-building project. Thinking about the current global environment, the economy, tariff situation in general, how confident are you that this agreement will really happen and can withstand some of those pressures that I just mentioned?
Do you want to go?
Up to you.
Go ahead. I've been jumping in first every time. We got to balance this out.
Negotiation, live negotiation.
You know, Charlene, with greatest of respect, I actually think it's the reverse. I don't think it's a question of whether this agreement can withstand some of the pretty major geopolitical changes that are happening in the world. I think we need to turn the thinking around. And as I alluded to earlier, this is the kind of thing that we ought to be doing. As a sovereign country, we ought to be doing these things that demonstrate, in particular to the United States, our ability to set the foundations for a resilient, prosperous, and an autonomous economy going forward. We need, as a country, to be, because our relationship with the United States, it's changed. And it's not just changed because Donald Trump. It's changed for deeper reasons, and it's changed because of the loss of the preeminence that the United States has in the world. But for Canada, you know, these are the kinds of things we need to be doing, and we need to be, A, sending signals to the United States that we can, and then B, very importantly, we need to be seen to be delivering on those things. You can't just send a message. The message is incredible unless you're also starting to deliver. And that's why I think sort of getting on with this and doing some of the things that we're doing, is important. But my view is this is what we ought to be doing, because by doing this, we'll build a more resilient country for a very different geopolitical world than the one we're used to.
Yeah, I would add only this piece is that this has created that moment that we should grab quickly. And Nick mentioned it at lunch, is that this project is ready. This relationship, this new set of efforts that we're going to put forward is ready. And so we can be at the forefront of what can happen between two provinces, not across the border into the United States, between two provinces. We can show the rest of the country how it can be done, even as difficult as it was. My God, if we could do that, if you could overcome the history, as Michael said, not easily, but if we could overcome that, what can't be done here? And so we really should be a model to show that when you have the impetus, when you have the political leadership there, when you have willing parties who have, again, a Venn diagram of overlap of needs and opportunity, we should be helping our neighbors, and our neighbors being our family, which is really the country. And so we should be trying to support our family first before we do anything else. So let's take advantage of this geopolitical moment that is awakening, to use Nick's words earlier, something in this country. And it's really important that we capitalize on that right now.
Charlene, let me just add one thing quickly, further thought on this just quickly. Just think about, let's call it an order of magnitude, $30 billion investment program. Now, it's not all going to happen right away, but it can start pretty soon. Well, one of the issues that we all face in Canada right now is with the level of economic uncertainty that's been created, it's going to have an impact. It's going to cause other people to invest less, and there's going to probably be some economic slowdown. Recession or not, I don't know, but a slowdown. But when you think you have a pool of investment that we're willing to back financially, that's going to act as we get going as a buffer. And that's going to act as something that can mitigate some of the downdraft associated with all the uncertainty in the world. So that's a way of also contributing to our economy right in the here and now as we get going on this.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I just had to ask the question because, the challenges with doing this. I mean, we heard of the Atlantic Loop and all of the hype around that, and that never saw the light of day. So I just wondered how confident you were with this proceeding. just want to get into a more specific question I know our members are keenly interested in hearing about. So several years ago, Energy NL, we undertook consultations with our membership as we explored the possibility of expanding our mandate. For 45 years, we were solely responsible for oil, and then in March of 2022, we became Energy NL, where renewables fell under our mandate. And a lot of the things that we heard from our members during the consultation was that during the time of Muskrat Falls, there wasn't an industry association like ours to advocate for them, for our members to get the market intelligence, to do the supplier development session, and so on. And now that we are responsible for renewables, they're looking to us to ensure that Energy NL members have a big piece in the activity that's about to happen with $33 billion in projects. So what role do you see for Energy NL and our members playing as these projects do come to fruition, and what happened during Muskrat Falls? Now, there was a lot of work for our members during Muskrat Falls, but there wasn't that advocacy piece, that supplier development piece. So how can we work together to make sure that this time around we are there to help?
Yeah. So this is great, you know, I mean, like having these opportunities, providing the platform for Hydro-Québec, which are going to be, you know, a primary project manager. Michael, you know, we've talked a little bit about this. Michael being here and hearing from the business community, his team being in Labrador hearing from the business community. The role then for everybody here is, and for Energy NL, is to continue to find the ways to help us understand what those relationships are, what they can supply, what they can do. Sometimes the smallest conversation can turn into something that's really meaningful and that ensures success for the projects that are about to happen. So I think Energy NL continuing to advocate to us for these kinds of moments, providing the platforms for us to have these moments, demanding them of us, I think is really has to happen. Asking nicely always works. Charlene and I were talking earlier, and I think the session that Walter and Stefan did today was great. We're going to follow that up with, again, we'll work with you, again, at your direction on how that needs to look, but probably some more direct conversations. So I think continuing to advocate to be heard and to position yourself as a enabler to success, I think is really, really critical.
Yeah, we have a lot of experience in big projects, Muskrat Falls, oil and gas, and a lot of those skills are very transferable. So we pride ourselves in highlighting the capabilities of our members and what they can do. And of course, the more companies that you can RFP this to, the more competitive the prices will be.
Absolutely.
So if in the future, I know our members really appreciate supplier development sessions where you come in, you give some details, outlining the work coming up, but more so having that, even if it's a 10-minute speed dating session where there's an opportunity for business-to-business meetings. They really appreciate that, not to put you on the spot, but I have brought it up before.
I think that, and Michael may want to jump in on this. I mean, I think one of the things, too, that we do have folks obviously here from Labrador, and we have prioritized those sessions already in Labrador this year, but sometimes the folks in Labrador may want to have partnerships with a larger reach of folks so they can be, you know, more successful in some of maybe the larger packages. So the folks here who might be part of some of the larger companies having a better understanding and then themselves building partnerships with, you know, folks in Labrador, I think is a real good opportunity. So we have to be speaking to this broader business community.
Absolutely. Anything to add, Michael?
I'll be careful here. I don't want to, I have such a keen sense of Hydro-Québec needing to proceed carefully here and not lecturing people about what they ought to be doing. But so I'll go very carefully, but a couple of thoughts. Look, one, yes, we'll be taking the lead with respect to a lot of pretty substantial construction activity, as we've already talked about. In terms of, you know, this audience, I mean, I'll be very straightforward. You know, we don't know all of you that well. We know your counterparts in Quebec extremely well, but we don't know you. Couple of points. First, I can assure you that we have more than an open mind about working with all of you. So we know that for this to work, and for this work to be done, and for this to, pass the political scrutiny that it deserves, that it warrants, that we're going to have to be sensitive to the local markets, local communities, local suppliers, et cetera. So we're very open-minded about it, and you have my assurance and our collective assurance that we're going to be. My second point is, in a way, you have to help us help you. And either it's through Newfoundland Energy or it's directly, you need to be in touch with us. And you need to be active and probably kind of demanding. Some of our folks may not like that, but you probably need to be kind of demanding because we don't know you. And I just would really encourage you to make yourselves known to us, to when we're in Newfoundland, and we will increasingly have people here, ask us to have meetings. If you're in Montreal, come and see us, or if you want to see us somewhere else, we'll get on airplanes and see you somewhere else. But my point being, help us help you. We have an open mind, but we need your help to make sure that we actually deliver on the kind of thing that I'm talking about this afternoon.
And hearing that right from the top is very appreciated by our members, and I was in Montreal.
Now, Charlene, this indicates to me that you don't have a deep understanding of Hydro-Quebec, because the fact that the top of the House is saying that is not a guarantee. But we will at least try.
Well, I was just about to say I was in Montreal in March, where I did meet with another official from Hydro-Quebec who said the same, and that they're very committed to working with Newfoundland and Labrador suppliers. So hearing all the right things, and I think there's going to be a tremendous opportunity for great partnerships ahead to work together. I want to ask a little bit more of a personal question now, if that's okay, but what has there's been a lot of work, there's a lot of sleepless nights, and you've been doing this under the radar for quite some time. What has meant this to both of you, both professionally and personally? I mean, I know you've given up a lot of your time. I know Jennifer better than you so far, but we're getting to know each other. We had a really good conversation earlier, but it is a lot. So what has it meant to you personally and professionally?
Well, that's a complicated question. Look, I'll give you a quite personal answer. Sometimes I ask myself, what is it that I'm doing at Hydro-Quebec? Probably there are other people who ask that question too. But not as kindly as the way I just posed it. Anyway, I just think, like, we are at a time, when I first took this job on, I took this job on because I thought, both in Canada and around the world, we were at a time where energy and electricity development and the climate transition and the economic transition that accompanies it, these are just terribly important issues. And Hydro-Quebec is of a scale and is positioned in a way that, you could really make a difference. Add to that now the circumstances that we find ourselves in as a country, where the work that we do, the work that Jennifer does, gives us the potential to actually also contribute to a much broader set of issues facing the country. So when I look through the lens of those two things at this deal, what I see is an opportunity to contribute, and that word really matters to me, contribute, to addressing the needs that Canada has, that Quebec has, that Newfoundland and Labrador has, and that's what this deal has meant to me, and that's why it's been worth the time and the attention, and yeah, some of the frustration associated with a pretty challenging negotiation. But when you come out the other end, as we have, or as we are now doing, and you look back on what this new agreement can mean both for us in Quebec, for Newfoundland and Labrador, but I firmly believe more broadly across Canada, and the example that this deal is for the rest of the country at this juncture where we now have a Prime Minister who's really talking about getting on with these things. To contribute to that, that's worth the time, attention, sleepless nights, et cetera, to be able to have made a difference in a small way on those things.
Chad?
I worked at Newfoundland Power for almost 13 years, took a short break out of the industry and went to work at the Airport Authority, and then had an opportunity to come work at Hydro. And I remember walking in the building for the first time, I think it was when I took the job, and I did this. I love electricity. And I didn't know that I loved electricity until I kind of came back to it. And then working for a few years at Hydro, then I didn't know that I was a civil servant. I did not know that about myself. So when I couple the fact that personally, I'm in the middle of this, and then you add on the fact that I grew up in this province, heard about all of the negativity of the past, and had no clear path when I was a graduating student 27 years ago that I would end up here, it kind of is amazing sometimes. And so love electricity, very much a public servant as part of this organization, but being able to contribute to this file for all of the history of the past, but also for the reasons I love the planet. Like, oh, there's so much here. Like, it is sometimes astounding to me that I'm part of it. Like I said, I sat here and Walter and Stefan just looked at them earlier, and it really struck me, and I'm in the middle of this. I was like, this is really incredible, and I really hope that you all feel that too. And if you don't, come talk to me, because I will make you feel it. Mm-hmm. It really is incredible. But I will say, just to go back to the sleepless, I mean, we have asked a lot, and I'm sure Michael would say that too, of a number of the folks that are here, and there's others that were behind, whether they were our employees or the consultants that we had working on it. Very difficult, Carl and Dennis. This was really, really hard, and people didn't take vacation. They left their families behind. Sometimes they would go up to Montreal, and they didn't know when they were going home. So that was really tough, to continue to ask people, can you keep at it? Can you keep at it? And it was really, really hard to continue to ask folks with no guarantee we were coming out the other side. I mean, there was times that we thought this is not going to happen, even with the reason, even though it should.
More than one or two.
So, that was tough, to kind of continue, and we're still continuing to ask those people to continue digging deep on that. But at the same time, I mean, I would say this a few times, and it sounded probably lecture-y, and I probably said it just as much for myself as I would have for the team, especially for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. Tens of thousands of people would like to be sitting in the seat that we are in, having this conversation, examining this opportunity. And I met the teams that were working us. I'm not kidding. Anybody here who's from Newfoundland, you would probably love to be involved in this conversation. Tens of thousands of people, I think, would have been loved to involve. What a moment for our province. And so I wouldn't trade it for anything. Even with all the bad stuff, I still wouldn't trade it.
And Michael, you say a small role. I remember when your name was first mentioned, and it was like, oh, this is the former Deputy Minister in Finance. This is the person to have. It was not a small role. It's a major role. Mm-hmm. So thank you for your part in 3,900 megawatts of more power, $35 billion worth of work to happen in our provinces. That's not a small role. And Jennifer, I was at the announcement. I looked in your eyes that day. I know exactly what this meant to you.
Don't do it. Not going to make me cry.
Okay, last question, because the clock is ticking down. We've had a great discussion here today, including the session this morning. And before I conclude, I do want to ask for one parting comment or word of advice you would like to leave the audience with about the MOU, the projects, or the future development of Churchill Falls. Your parting comments, your parting advice.
Okay. Warning, it's going to sound lecture-y, but I really do have to take this moment as you can hear, I guess, myself and Michael, what we're talking about, here and how we feel about this, and I can guarantee you the teams behind us. For anybody in the room, choose how you feel about it, right? And if you think it's imperfect, show me something that's perfect. I think it's very good. It's good for both. How are you participating in this moment? We have a pretty incredible deal for both of us. How are you choosing to participate? Because, again, as I said earlier, the voices in this room, you really do matter. And how you choose to show up in this moment can actually have an influence. So I guess that's my parting comment and my parting advice. Maybe it's my parting ask, is that just reflect on who are you going to be and in this moment and really think about that. I'm asking you to be supportive. Ask your questions. We will answer your questions. We are working hard to deliver this for everybody, but just you do have a role. It truly is not passive. We need everybody to help us do the right things for both provinces and for Canada.
I would just say in wrapping up, my one request is don't let the future be the prisoner of the past. This deal is about the future. Yes, things were not as correct as they should have been and probably unfair in the past. But if you imprison yourself by always thinking about the future as a way of settling past scores, you'll never build the future. And so that's my one request. Think about the future, think about the opportunity, think about the potential that's there for Newfoundland and Labrador, for Quebec, for Canada, but think forward. Don't think backward and judge the potential of the future with the lenses that come from, a difficult past. We all understand that. But this is about moving forward, it's about the future, and it's about making Canada stronger.
I wish you had a mic now that you could just drop. That was the mic drop. And we'll continue working together. We have a great relationship, and I look forward to developing our relationship. So thank you so much for doing this today, for joining us, sharing your perspectives on the development of these projects and the opportunities that lie ahead. As we've discussed, the significant infrastructure projects required to open the Upper Churchill River will take many people, much experience and dedication. I feel strongly, and I think I can speak confidently for those gathered here today, that we believe Energy NL members, Newfoundland and Labrador companies, in partnerships with our friends at Quebec, have the skills, the experience, the expertise, and the drive to make these projects a reality. I look forward to continuing working with you both. And just a few housekeeping pieces for tonight. I